Hi, Nikki. Welcome on the Looped In podcast, the podcast where retail leaders talk about how we're all re-engaging customers in this ever-changing macro environment. I'm super excited to have you on today because obviously you and I have been in touch for a while, and you're very much an expert in unified commerce as well as retail, omnichannel at large. So I'm really excited for our discussion today.
I am too. Thanks so much for having me.
So actually, what is unified commerce? This feels like the new flavor of the day. So maybe we jump right in with that.
That's a good one to start with, really, because I think a lot of people have a different perspective on what it actually means. When I talk to people who come at it from an e-commerce space, they really think of unified commerce as like really unifying all of your digital channels and not really considering the impact of the store. And I think that unified, to me, you have to start with the store. That's where most sales still happen. But you have to think about the whole journey of the customer and all of the touch points that they might leverage along the path of that journey, and whether you can actually follow that customer from touch point to touch point. That is where the unified part becomes important and comes into play. If you can't follow all those touch points, or you get sort of disconnected pieces of where the customer is or what their context is or what their objective is, then you do not have a unified experience and you don't have a unified view of your customer.
And how does that differentiate with omnichannel?
Channel to me is really more about like almost more the inventory side, right? It's like more about making inventory available across all of your channels so that you can serve the customer no matter where your inventory is. But it's less like unified commerce to me is more about unifying the customer experience as opposed to omnichannel kind of unifying the inventory experience, if you will.
So you've been obviously a big trailblazer of evangelizing this concept, right? Because I don't think we were talking about unified commerce 5 years ago. I think it's fairly recent. What brought you here? What made this your passion? And how did you become such a recognized expert in retail?
Have always had an affinity for technology and being able to kind of translate technical terms into business language. That really, I think, was the core. That's the core of what has helped me on my journey. And then the passion is the part that I think has really helped make me successful, because I can't help but have that bleed through whenever I talk about anything that's related to retail and technology. And I think for retailers, like what really got me excited about what's happening with technology in retail is that the industry historically has not been very technologically driven, right? It's about people who love products and people who want to sell those products to a bunch of other people. That's the heart of retail. And technology was often, for a long time, seen as something that gets in the way. As we've seen consumer grade technology get adopted, to be able to go to retailers and say, you need to care about this. Your customers are using this technology. You have to care about it. And to be able to explain why and how, that's really been the basis of everything that I've ever said about retail and technology.
That's so interesting that you touch on the expectation of the consumers and how the consumers have evolved in their own journey and therefore requiring a certain service that couldn't exist without being technologically enabled. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, just like when you think about the evolution of mobile phones, right? So 2007, iPhone was released, really a touchstone moment in consumer adoption of technology, because it changed the phone from being something that you actually talk to people on into this always on internet access that could open up the whole world of the internet to the consumer. And the idea that now, because consumers have this device, retailers can communicate directly to them when they're in the store. And what really happened instead was that consumers use their phones to price check or find availability if an item was out of stock. Like, they completely turned the power equation with the retailer on its head. Consumers started walking into stores knowing way more about the products that they were interested in than the store associates, who were supposed to be the experts that could sell them those items. And I still don't think that we've recovered from that power dynamic switch. 2009 and 2010, I remember having conversations with retailers saying, we're going to wrap our stores in aluminum foil and not let any cell signals inside so that consumers can't access. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Just general strategy, trying to block your consumers from doing something does not sound like a good idea to me.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe like this actually happened.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they were talking about like cell blockers, and they would make an intranet available so you could get on their Wi-Fi, but then they wouldn't let you go out to Amazon, so they were blocking access to Amazon from the store. Those kinds of things.
But given that the consumer now are so empowered that that power dynamic has changed, do you think that it is harder for the retailer to drive value through sales straight in stores or through stores in general?
I mean, I think it's harder in general, whether that's in store or online. I think right now we're at the dawn of an equivalent touch point or touchstone, if you will. So the mobile phone in 2007, I think we're going to look at 2023 when ChatGPT launched as one of those new touchstone moments to try to understand how the power dynamic is changing again. I think there's a huge opportunity for, and I don't mean that in a good way. I mean it's a huge challenge for retailers that they could be completely disintermediated online, right, by ChatGPT and these LLMs. But there's also a huge opportunity in the store to rebalance the power dynamic and really give store associates that opportunity to kind of at least match wits with a consumer who is very passionate about a single product, went really deep on that product's features and functions, and wants the store associates' help. Before they were really, right now, they're really disadvantaged. Like they haven't done that kind of deep research. They're in a store full of thousands of products. There's no way that they could know any one of them as well as a customer knows it who wants to buy it. And I think with AI and with some of the opportunities for delivering new insights to store associates, we do have an opportunity to look at rebalancing that equation and giving the store associate more capability that helps them be a better partner for that very passionate, informed consumer that they've been lacking up until now.
That's interesting that you touch on that because we see a lot of AI innovation on the consumer experience side of things, right? There's been a lot of companies investing heavily in terms of digital stylists, those kind of LLM powered chatbots, whether it is from a stylist perspective or a customer service perspective. But my perspective is that a big opportunity is everything that's the bottom of the iceberg that is hidden, that is actually about enabling better workflows and a better experience from a back-end perspective. And it seems that that's what you're alluding to. Pragmatically, like what do you think is the role of AI for physical stores as what do you see the different opportunities being with this hidden world that consumers might not be aware of?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of opportunity to provide customer insights to store associates and give them kind of inline tips on how to take advantage of that moment, right? Retailers spend a lot of money getting a consumer to walk inside a store ultimately, right? Between what they've invested in the store location, the inventory that's there, the labor that's there, and then all the advertising, ultimately they're trying to get them into a store, if not online. The challenge is that for most retailers outside of luxury, for most retailers, the store associate doesn't know who this person is who walked through the door. Even in a luxury situation, you'll have a store associate that does have a relationship with a customer, but that doesn't mean that they're on staff every time that customer walks in the door. So, really being able to kind of streamline the amount of information that a store associate has to have at their disposal. Like you kind of have to spoon feed a store associate just because they have to integrate it into a dynamic conversation that they're having in real time. And that's where I think AI really has an opportunity. So you really have to think about how to use the strengths of the store as opposed to go around them.
That totally makes sense. And also, ultimately, I also do think that it is hard to replicate the human element, right? Because we're thinking about what is the role of the store and what is so unique about the store that you couldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and bring the unique personalities, right? Like, I mean, I've seen store experiences. I was shopping when a mother and a daughter were looking for a prom dress, which, I've done that, but so I was like eavesdropping as they're shopping for the prom dress because it's so fun. And the girl was a swimmer. So
Wow.
she looked great in everything that she tried on. One store associate was like, "Oh no, I like the blue one better." And the other one's like, "No, no, no, the black," right? Like they're getting into an argument about it. And then I'm, of course, getting involved, like, "No, no, you should definitely go with the blue one." Like that kind of experience, you're not going to get that with an LLM. That genuine sense of community that you can have on the fly, on like at the snap of a finger, you can have that sense of community in the store, and that's not something that's easy to replicate online. You're not going to get those random encounters that really make somebody feel great about themselves without going into a store to get it.
So the community element and probably also a bit of imperfection. It does
Yes.
seem that the experience you just mentioned is a bit imperfect because people have different perspective, different point of view, but it's a bit of the spice of life.
Yes. Yes. And and then of course when she picked the blue one, the woman who was advocating for the black one said, "Well, honestly, you look great in both," right? Like
Oh, that is too good. So you think that AI has a role for delivering at the right moment in the right format what the sales associates needs to be supported.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned on the customer data, but I'm inferring from what you said earlier, probably also product information, product research, especially when there's a lot of products in the store. That's something that
Yeah.
is helpful because they cannot learn everything.
Yes, I think so. And I think again, sort of that spoon feeding. It's like how quickly consumers adopted review summaries. I mean, I don't
Hmm.
read a whole bunch of reviews anymore. I go to the summary because I just want to know, tell me what everybody said in general. And even those review summaries are sometimes contradictory, right? It's like some people felt this, but other people felt the exact opposite. And that's when, you can decide to dive deeper or not. But again, it's like spoon feeding. It's taking what would be really detailed information that you would have to parse through, and it's highlighting the things that are most important. And you can do that in almost any context. And you can do that in a store associate who is looking at a bunch of products, or you can do that in the context of a store associate who's looking at one product. And especially if the customer is known, to be able to reprioritize the things that you give to the store associate to say, for this kind of shopper, they value these attributes more, so lead with these attributes. Like those are the kinds of things that can get really interesting in helping that store associate. They will never be an expert on every single product that the store carries, but it will give them the confidence to act like that expert and to have the boost that they need in order to convey information that maybe a customer couldn't find out for themselves, right? That now the store associate kind of reasserts their value in that equation that has been eroded by all of the information that's available online.
But how do we make that happen from a data perspective, right? Because there is a data readiness, an AI readiness, a data infrastructure layer that needs to be there to make this happen. If you don't have good data to put in, you can't hope to deliver this kind of experience.
Totally agree. And I think that a lot of people kind of skip to the end. So they throw something out there and then it doesn't give them all the quality of answer that they expected. And then they say AI is not going to work or AI doesn't pay off, right? You really have to start bottom up. We had this conversation when people talked about personalization and providing, product recommendations and personalized offers to customers. And then it was like, well, you can only get so far with the data that you have. So You have to have good data. It has to be structured well. You have to have ways of incorporating structured and unstructured data. Like you have to bring all of this together in a way that you can use it. And nobody has really done that. I mean, there's some retailers who will say, yes, we have climbed this mountain, but the mountain keeps getting taller. So you never get to the top. I say like data is a lifestyle. It's not a project. It is not a one and you're done. You continuously have to look at how new sources of data change how you incorporate data and how you deliver insights from that data. So AI is generating new kinds of data, right? Now you have data about what kinds of questions are customers asking and what do they do next after they get an answer? What kind of follow-up questions are they asking? That's data in and of itself that you also have to incorporate. You absolutely foundationally, you have to have great customer data. You have to have great product data. You have to have great sales data that connects those two together and keeps track of that at a very granular level. And you even, back to unified commerce, you have to understand what was the path that the customer took to get to this particular purchase in the first place. And, what touch points did they use and did they cycle back? Like, what did that journey look like? All of those things, you have to have all of those things before you can use them to provide insights. And it's back, we're right back where we started. It's like, if you don't have clean customer data, you have no starting point. So I'm totally like, you have
Yeah.
to have good data.
And to your points, the landscape keeps changing in the sense of, yes, there are new sources of data, but also your customers' perspective, their behavior changes all the time. You have new products all the time, really treating it as putting the right foundations in and then making sure it is a top priority within the business on a consistent basis is really important. Do you think that AI can help us in also gathering this data?
Yes, I do. When I think about attributes, product attributes, even customer attributes, honestly, there's a lot that AI can do that can help turn unstructured data into the kind of structured data that's more easy to use. So all of the effort that you put into a product description, right, can actually become attributes that are very important in helping find products that customers are looking for. So contextual search is a huge opportunity, right out of the box. Just not I'm looking for a black dress, but I'm looking for a black dress for prom, right? That context becomes critically important, and being able to connect your products to that context, that's where AI, I think, is really, really helpful.
And in terms of data gathered within the store, how do you see the store as a source of data in terms of
Gosh.
behavior, likes, dislikes, and even in terms of feedback at product level? I'm just super interested in seeing what have you heard and what have you seen?
It's the store has been a black box for a really long time, right? Customers walk in and sales happen. And everything that happens in between, it's really down to whatever a store associate is willing or able to share is the insight that you get about how any of that worked. And I think that we have much more opportunity. The more that technology helps enable, emphasis on helps, then the more you have the opportunity to kind of shine more of a light in stores. So I've seen all kinds of ways that people are trying to shine that light in the store. Everything from cameras and footpath tracking to QR codes that consumers scan, and then you know what they looked at. RFID helps you know, did this product go in the fitting room or not? But I think the limitation there has been, how do you turn that data into insights? And that's the missing piece from I think from an LLM, from an AI perspective, is to be able to say, this is a sea of signals. So what in here is noise and what in here is really worthwhile? And I think even more so, like, what action can you take on it? Because yeah, it might be insightful that a bunch of this product is going into the fitting room and coming out unsold. Okay, but what are you going to do
But
about it?
why?
Like, Well, and that too. Yes, very much so the why. Absolutely.
It is very hard with making correlations that are just stats. You can't actually prove, and therefore you might not be making the right action based on that.
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, I also think we now have more opportunity to ask them. We do all of this stuff to observe and infer. And sometimes you can just ask them, and sometimes they'll even tell you.
What a wild concept, asking the customers.
I mean, heaven forbid we actually talk to the customer and ask them what they think.
There's no retailer or brand right now that truly has it figured out in terms of empowering AI with the right data that obviously. But do you have examples of brands or retailers that are doing it pretty well?
I have to give Tapestry, the owners of Coach, I have to give them props. And they've been pretty public about it too. It's been really great because retailers, especially when you start talking about customer data, they get very like paranoid. It's my secret sauce. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't want to share about it. And I feel like Tapestry actually has been kind of bucking against the trend and talking about kind of what they're doing and how that has driven benefit for them. They're a luxury retailer. They have a smaller set of customers that are much more passionate about their products. The big question there is, how do you take that level of investment and knowledge about your customers and translate that on mid-market retailer who does not know their customers as well and who has a higher volume of customers and a higher volume of purchase? That to me is where there's real opportunity to unlock value because they are not engaging with their customers that way. And I do think we have more of an opportunity to do that now in this environment, tech environment, than we did before.
Yes, I think that 8 to 5 years ago, the opportunity was on VIC, and now the opportunity is the layer below. In general, plus mid-market retailers. With that customer who doesn't have that really, really strong loyalty to the brand, what is the opportunity there to personalize their experience, raise to their expectation? It requires a different set of tools and a different strategy than it does with your core, diehard, loyal customers or, your luxury customers, if that's the space you're in. On the flip side, do you see brands really falling short in terms of unified commerce? What would you say are like the most major pitfalls that
Yeah.
you see brands having?
I mean, I still see brands that are not omnichannel. We can start there.
Yeah.
They don't do buy online, pick up in store. They don't do ship from store. I see a lot of companies who do those things, but have not really pulled off save the sale. So from the in-store perspective of capturing inventory elsewhere, we don't have it in your size, but try this one on and see if it fits. And I can get that color shipped to your house, right? Those kinds of conversations I don't see happening nearly enough. A lot of retailers have kind of perverse incentives in place where if a store associate does make that effort, then it's e-commerce that gets credit for the sale. Even buy online, return in store, getting a customer to come to a store, that's a trip. That's an incremental trip. You have the opportunity to turn what would normally be sort of a negative customer service event of wanting to return something into something positive. And yet, again, perverse incentives where the return, because it happened in this store, it decrements that store's sales. And then they're stuck with this inventory that they have to figure out what to do with that was not meant to be in that store in the first place. So, those kinds of things you have to think through very much. I also see a lot of, I don't know you as a customer that you've shopped online. I only know what you've bought in stores because as the store associate, that's all I can see. That's probably the lowest hanging fruit. Those ones that I just rattled off, I think those are probably the lowest hanging fruit right off the top. But, even just giving the store associate the ability to see all the things that a customer has bought, whether it was online or in store, and give them the last note of the customer interaction that they had with a call center. Just give them the latest. Even that is not guaranteed for every store, right? Or every store associate.
Yeah, give them the picture, the lay of the land. And I think looping back on what we started the call with is that's where technology can really be empowering rather than something that is a strain on the store, right? It's so technology can actually help you have that visibility, have the connection of the dot. And besides technology, what I really see and hear from what you're saying is finance and commercial operations. That really seem to be something that is not supporting unified commerce at large. And my biggest pet peeve is why are we running P&Ls based on where the transaction is based versus where purchase intent is originating from. I just don't get it, because ultimately that doesn't help us at all to make any investment decision or anything like that.
Totally agree. I've had the same exact conversations. I've had the conversations of your P&L is your P&L. Your incentive program, you can construct your incentive program however you like. It does not have to match or tick and tie to your P&L. Like, reward the behavior that you want, and that's all you need to do. It does not need to tick and tie to revenue from a gap, perspective. Like, nobody's going to audit you on that. So I am also amazed. Like, KPIs, I just see so many times where retailers have not thought this all the way through. And then they're like, well, I don't understand why my store associates aren't trying to save the sale. It's like, well, because it actually hurts them to do that. Like, why would they?
Why would they? And actually, you talk about save the sale, where they're still triggering the sale if they were to do it like with a online and sale, for example. But what about the use case of simply pushing customers to buy themselves online, with the customers being so empowered, being the captain of their own ship, especially Gen Z? A lot of them want to be price comparing. They're, as you said, very well aware of what's going on online, and maybe they do want to buy it online later on by themselves. How do we help the sales associate really support that journey as well?
Yeah, I think that communication with the consumer also becomes very important, and enabling that communication. I know plenty of retailers whose store associates do not have email addresses, like corporate email address. So you can't even email, forget about, or you get them taking that all offline and I'll give you my WhatsApp, right? Which then the retailer completely loses sight of. So again, you have to think through, what is the customer journey that the consumer wants to have. I think that's another area where retailers make a lot of mistakes. They go through these elaborate strategies to construct the perfect customer journey. But is that what customers want to do, or is that what you want them to do? Because they're going to do what they want to do, whether you want them to do it or not. So it has to be about, well, how does the customer want to engage? And then what are you doing to support and enable that? And if it is that at the end of the day, they don't want the store associate to do it for them, they want to do it themselves, then you've got to make it easy for the store associate to say, well, let me just send you this cart. And then when you log in online, you can just buy this cart. It'll already be there for you to buy if you want, right? I know a lot of retailers who think through the incentives of that to say, well, you can buy it online, but you may not get free shipping. Whereas if I buy it for you right now and just send it to your house, it'll be free shipping, right? Because then you don't have that opportunity to start questioning, well,
Hear
do
that
I
a
really
lot.
need this, right?
Yeah.
You don't want those kinds of doubts to start coming into play.
But let me ask you, if a customer was helped by a sales associate in the store, went through a fitting session, a try on, then leaves the stores and then goes and buy online by themselves without having been reminded by the sales associate, without having received the filled in cart on the website, do you think that the sales associate should be rewarded in some shape or form? And do you think that we should know about the performance of that sales associate who ultimately promoted the products?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big gap when retailers say, I don't understand why when I open a store, my online sales increase in that region. And conversely, when I close a store, my online sales fall in that region. It's this kind of connective tissue between store and online that's not visible. So retailers don't give any credit to it at all. But it's a huge amount of influence that you should be recognizing. If there's no connection, again, the store is dark, right? They may not have known that the customer went to that store. And even if they knew that the customer went to the store and the customer bought something, they may not have known that there was a conversation about a color and a size that they didn't have,
Or
right?
that the
And that
customer
that
tried
didn't,
on anything?
yeah. So there's like no way to make that kind of connection to, oh, this customer bought something online. So, I mean, I've talked to retailers who've gone through the analysis and said, we've looked at customers who bought something in stores, and then we looked at their online behavior for the next 7 days. But they said the amount of work it took to pull this data together just so that we could ask this one question, right? That was an enormous amount of work in and of itself, not something that's repeatable, which I was like, well, why did you go through all that effort? It was not repeatable. And they were like, because we didn't know if there was any there, right? Like, we just wanted to
Yeah, you didn't know
know.
if it was worth looking into it further. Oh,
Yes,
God.
to make it, a repeatable question. So they did the experiment, which was an enormous amount of effort, and they did find that, yes, they get a significant increase in business in the next 7 days online for a customer who came and bought something in a store. So, the value of that omni-channel shopper is way higher than a single channel shopper. And they were able to prove it, but then it was like, okay, but again, you're missing that connective tissue. What happened in the store? I don't know. Why did the customer buy these things online? Were these things even available in the store? Sometimes they were available in the store, right? And it was like, so why did all of this happen?
I don't
I don't
know.
know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, because it's interesting. Is it that they tried on those products, but then, they probably didn't want to spend the full amount for everything that they liked. And so they left some stuff behind. And then they're like, okay, but I still want them. Whilst like online, you usually get your full cart right away for the products that you consider and then you return. That's a more common behavior. Is it that, or is it like what they were looking for was not available in store? And so they kept searching. They bought some stuff in store and then online, they finally found the rest of what they were looking for. That's like question. And what about third-party retailers? So let's complexify things a little bit. So not complex enough. So, okay, we have our stores, we have our D2C. Now we're probably on marketplaces as well, and then wholesale retailers online and in store, right? How do you think that works so far, unified commerce? Is it that those different third parties have a different role to play? And can we tie the dots from a data perspective with those as well?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple dimensions to this. So like let's start with the most vulnerable of multi-brand retailers, which is department stores. And the very name of it, department, is that you're going to go into the purse department and you're going to go into the shoe department. And the reality is a little bit more complex than that because all of the brands insist a lot on preserving their brand. So you go into the purse department and it's going to be Kate Spade over here and it's going to be Coach over here, right? It's going to be all of those kinds of brands separate from each other. And really, the value of a multi brand retailer should be integrated. It should be, oh, you're looking for a full outfit for a weekend trip. Great. I can pull that together for you. And you have many more choices than if you just went to one brand. If you really loved one brand, you would go to that brand store or you would go online to that brand. If you're looking for more choices and more options, then you need a retailer who has store associates that are empowered to reach across all of those departments.
The value is the curation then.
Yes, it is. I think that department stores need to change to really facilitate much more of that integrative shopping experience. I know all the brands. You can come here for all the brands, but I can put these together in outfit ways that you will never see. Yeah, right?
Exactly, but like it works online, right? The reason
Yeah.
why you go to a multi-brand retailer online is because you see the curation, the stylist job with mixing those different brands. But to your point right now, in store for department store, it's not empowered to be that way, which is not the natural way the consumer shops.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. I've used the example in the past of like, I want a black skirt. Okay, well, I don't want to have to go to 5 different places in a department store to see all the black skirts. And if it's going to be that way, I might as well go to the 5 different stores that are in the mall that not only will have the black skirt, but will have somebody from that brand who can tell me exactly why I want their black skirt. It just is self-defeating to me in this multi-tab world when you can tab across all of these options, or you can go to a marketplace like Amazon and see everything there all together. It's dangerous. That's where curation has to become important. And I think I think consumers are ready for that. Like, there's definitely decision fatigue, too many choices. Trusted curation is probably the most valuable thing that a retailer can deliver these days. And particularly multi-brand retailers are just not putting the effort into delivering that.
Yeah, 1,000%. But then from a data perspective, how can
Yes.
we retrieve data from those multi-brand retailers as a brand?
Yeah. So I think there's a
Because our
couple ways.
consumers might be shared, right? Your consumer might also be shopping there in addition.
Yes. Yes. So I've seen some good examples. So like there are some brands that will accept returns from multi-brand retailers. So you went and bought at Macy's, but you can return at Toomey's, for example. So they will accept returns at their stores. If it's Toomey, they don't care. They will do the return themselves. And when they do that, it creates a customer data capture event that you might not have had an opportunity for because that customer was captured by the department store instead of by the brand. Online, I've seen lots of examples now where brands are much more savvy in how they approach marketplaces, where they will have a limited assortment that's available on the marketplace. And then in the packaging, they will try to entice the consumer to come and shop directly from the brand. So they use marketplaces more like customer acquisition channels as opposed to fulfillment channels. If you do think about it more in terms of, well, how do I turn this purchase into a customer acquisition event? Then I think you have lots more opportunity to derive value and continue to derive value out of a marketplace.
That makes sense. For me, I definitely see it as a customer acquisition tool as well as a brand awareness, top of the funnel tool, and positioning. Because the reality is, like, especially if you're strategically working on positioning maybe part of your assortment a certain way, then being on the right marketplace, then is the right thing to do, right? So that I see to be a very big value is the positioning element as well. But customer acquisition tool, okay, hopefully they go back to your ecosystem, but it is still very hard to understand which products did they interact with, what did they like, what did they dislike, all of that. That's, I think, the other big black box.
Retail media is starting to crack that a bit, right? The marketplaces understand that in order to entice a brand to buy space or buy exposure, you have to give them some data to justify the expense. And that does give you kind of more deeper insights into, well, how often do consumers click on the very first box? How much is that really worth you to pay you to be the first box on the page?
You don't get it at the customer
Individuals.
ID level, yeah, which would allow you to tie that experience for that specific customer. I think that's where we're going to see big changes over the next 5 years, because there is that desire from both the consumer and the brand to really have that experience being properly tied up. So going beyond that, generalized data that is of value and is being sold, but understanding how can we actually continue to have just deeper ties at customer level, which I think multi-brand need to think of in order to weather the storm, because I think they're the ones right now who have the hardest job.
Yes, I agree. And whoever owns the cart, right,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately has the most value. But to go way back to an earlier part of the discussion, the LLMs are making a play to own the cart. So I think every retailer, brand and multi-brand retailer, needs to be thinking about what are the consequences if an LLM owns the cart versus me. And brands I know get a little bit smug in thinking, well, it doesn't matter because it's still my product ultimately that gets bought. But if you think about the value of the insights from the journey and that all of those insights would go away because you have no visibility into that, you're not really owning the cart anymore. Like you don't have the data that you need in order to put the right influences and positioning in place to capture that customer in the first place. So yeah, you don't own the cart.
Yeah. And therefore, you can't engage your customers the way they would want to be engaged.
Yep.
And that's the re-engagement issue. Well, thank you so much, Nikki. This has been such a great conversation. I loved having your perspective. It's also great seeing how your perspective and insights evolved over time with the work that you're doing at Aptos. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.